The Arkansas Razorbacks find themselves 2 wins away from Omaha, and standing in their way is Tony Vitello and the Tennessee Volunteers as the Vols come to Baum Walker for the Super Regional round. Helping us break it all down from the Arkansas perspective, good friend of the show joins us once again, Andrew Ellis of Inside Arkansas. Andrew, appreciate you taking the time. Excited to talk about with you what's going to be an electric weekend down in Fayetteville.
Yeah, man, it's not going to be for the faint of heart, man. There's going to be a lot of eyeballs on this weekend here in Fayetteville, and it's going to be a nerve-wracking weekend. I mean, Hawg fans have already kind of, when the tournament field was released, we all did the math and looked at it and saw, oh, wait a minute, this could be Arkansas, Tennessee. And I think that scares some Hawg fans. I think it's exciting. I think these are the kind of moments you want to play in college baseball. It's really the main event of the weekend. If you look at the rest of the slate, like there's some good games, good series, but there's going to be a lot of eyeballs on Arkansas, Tennessee. Should be an unreal atmosphere. 2 really talented teams, man. What more could you ask for?
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. Andrew, before we get to that, I do want to ask you about the regional round. Again, in a weekend where there was so much chaos. We saw upsets everywhere. Number 1 overall national seed goes down. The number 2 overall seed that won the SEC regular season, they go down as well. I even mentioned it was a rough weekend for the conference as a whole. Arkansas was not included in that. I'm sure you guys were very happy to see it, and there really weren't even, dare I say, a whole lot of dramatics in Fayetteville. Arkansas sweeps through the regional, beats North Dakota State 6-2, then beats Creighton a pair of times, 12-1 and 8-3 on Sunday night in the winners game, obviously to clinch the regional title. Your thoughts on what you saw in the regional, takeaways from what you saw from the Hawgs. And again, Andrew, I feel like you guys were due a weekend in a regional in which it was kind of smooth sailing after the last few years.
Absolutely. I mean, you can't take anything for granted in the postseason. Like, I'm not in the business of ever going to complain about postseason wins or like nitpick. And particularly with the way the postseason's gone for Arkansas the last 2 years, of course, Hawg fans, I think, also are not going to take that for granted. And so I think they could have used a weekend like that to kind of reset and remind them this team's a little bit different. This team's not the same as those past teams. I think we all kind of felt that and believed that, but you don't know until you get out there and see it. And so I think it was important for Hawg fans to see their team in that kind of context. Also, Arkansas has been playing a lot of really good competition. I mean, down the stretch, you faced the biggest and baddest dudes in the SEC week in and week out. The back half of their SEC schedule was crazy. I think this was a nice little reminder of like, oh, wait a minute. When we play teams that aren't literally the best in the country, there's a little bit of a gap there. And so I think it was cool for Arkansas fans to see that. And definitely Hawg fans could have really used something like that to kind of just exhale, relax, because I don't think it's going to be as relaxed this weekend, but I think they needed to restore that confidence in the program and see that confidence in the team.
Andrew, you mentioned that. Let's just dive into it. And before we get to on the field, the atmosphere, what you're expecting from Baum Walker this weekend. And obviously Tennessee was in town just a few weeks ago. I know it was raucous then, but it definitely feels like talking to you, talking to some other Hawg fans, those that cover the team, the atmosphere is going to be at a different level this weekend.
Well, we're hoping so, man. And the thing that makes me a little nervous is the weather. We're just going to knock on wood. We're going to get in front of that now. That's something we're going to have to keep an eye on all weekend. And that's been the story of Arkansas's home slate. I think that's what made fans. I mean, this past weekend, the weather could not have been better. And Hawg fans were loving it because they haven't had a ton of that throughout the regular season. They had a lot of series impacted by rain that maybe hurt the atmosphere a little bit because it's not good weather. Fans don't know when the games are. You're moving everything around. So hopefully they're able to avoid all that. But yeah, on ESPN, if the ticket prices or the ticket just acquisition has been any indication, everybody, I mean, if I've gotten one DM, it's been 1,000 of people just like, hey, anyway I can get a ticket, anyway I can find my way in there. I'll pay you $200. I don't care. I'll whatever I can. It seems like a mad race to get tickets to Baum this weekend, and so hopefully it feels like that kind of event. But it should be. I mean, with Tony V and the boys coming to town, the Super Regional, a trip to Omaha on the line anyway. Like these things don't need any extra buttering up. But I think for this weekend, and like you said, they were here 3 weeks ago, and it was pretty good then. I think it should be on another level. But let's hope the weather cooperates.
Saturday, Sunday, Monday, if necessary, the schedule this weekend. Auburn, Coastal Carolina, the only SEC Super with the traditional Friday through Sunday, if necessary, schedule. Andrew, let me ask you this. You mentioned a few weeks ago when they played, Arkansas took 2 of 3, but it was through adversity, right? Lost game 1 10-7, then win games 2 and 3, 8-6 and 8-4. Interestingly enough about that series, Arkansas loses to Marcus Phillips in game 1, beats Liam Doyle in game 2, and then obviously again kind of exposes Tennessee's game 3 struggles and wins that one and comes back, takes a series that's right before the SEC tournament, literally the last series of the regular season. Does what happened that weekend play into it all, what to expect this weekend, or the way that Arkansas is, you think, going about game planning or strategy, or does it give you guys any more confidence? Like, how much does that series and what happened in the regular season, how much does it play into this weekend?
I mean, I think there's definitely things you can take from it. I think definitely for those individual players, those matchups, you see Liam Doyle once, you see Marcus Phillips once, you can take stuff and learn from that. And I think it certainly should give the team and the fan base some confidence. At the same time, it doesn't mean anything at this point. The fact that Arkansas was able to win that series doesn't necessarily mean they're going to win this one. But you look at the format of how it played out. You mentioned it there. Marcus Phillips in game 1, Liam Doyle game 2, very well could be what happens here. I don't know how Tennessee's going to handle the Liam Doyle situation. Of course, he came back and threw on Monday, so I would imagine they maybe want to get him an extra day of rest, but who knows? I mean, having it start on Saturday probably helps, but there's definitely something you can take from it. But I think there's some Hog fans, myself included, who look at it. Arkansas scored 8 runs on Liam Doyle in Baum-Walker Stadium just a few weeks ago. So, yeah, that gives you some confidence. But at the same time, it's like, are you going to hit an arm like that 8 runs again? Are you really going to be able to replicate that kind of performance? And so there's something to that. But, like you say, you kind of, with Tennessee, when you're playing Tennessee, it's like a race to get to those 6th and 7th arms because they're top 4, 5, 6 guys as dynamic, as electric as any in the country. And hell, even the guys that are in the bottom of the barrel are still throwing 97, 98. But yeah, I think that's the big advantage that Arkansas has over a lot of these teams is their depth of pitching. Everyone says, oh, we love our depth. Arkansas really does have about 9, 10 guys. Interestingly enough, though, Arkansas didn't throw a lot of their top guys last week. I mean, Christian Fouch did not pick up a ball. Will McIntyre did not pick up a ball. Cole Gibler, their dynamic freshman, did not pick up a ball in the regional. I don't know if that's an advantage, and you compare it to Tennessee, who basically had to empty the tank and use every single arm as many times as possible. I don't even really know if that's a clear advantage for Arkansas, because I think if you're a Tennessee team, that probably builds some confidence of like, dude, we can piece this game together. We can piece together a weekend no matter what. It doesn't matter. Whereas Arkansas's got a couple arms. It's like, I kind of want to see these guys get some work.
Once again, Arkansas took 2 of 3 just a few weeks ago. Obviously, they'll look to do the same this weekend in Fayetteville at Baum-Walker. Andrew, I asked you this question in regards to the regionals, and we'll do it again for the Supers. When you look at this weekend, and you can mention, too, if there's a player or two that you think needs to pop off, but a key to the weekend that whether they need to replicate the first time they played them or something different, key to the weekend, if Arkansas is going to punch their ticket to Omaha, what must they do well this weekend against a really dangerous Tennessee team?
Well, last time you asked me that, I said starting pitching, and it worked really well. Arkansas got a really good 6 scoreless innings out of Zach Root. Gage Wood strikes out 13. Those 2 guys looked like the guys that they are billed as potential first-round picks, legitimate frontline arms, and that's kind of been the question mark for this team. So you need that starting pitching. Aiden Jimenez is a good arm for Arkansas, a guy that I like a lot. I wouldn't say he's necessarily locked up that 3rd spot necessarily. It hadn't been smooth sailing, and so I think, like I said, Arkansas didn't have to piece together much. There weren't many high-leverage innings where Dave Van Horn's sitting there and he's like, man, I got to go to this reliever in this tight spot. What am I going to do? It kind of went according to schedule. There wasn't much controversy or drama. I obviously don't anticipate that being the case this weekend. And so I think that's kind of a key for me is some of those arms I just mentioned that didn't throw last week. Now you're going to get thrown to the Wolves. It might be 5-4 in the 8th inning against Tennessee. That's a lot different than 12-1 against Creighton or not throwing at all. I mean, some of these guys haven't thrown since Hoover. Hell, some of these arms haven't thrown since that Tennessee series because Arkansas only played 1 game in Hoover. And so I think that's going to be a huge key of like Arkansas's pitching depth is something that, again, is a strength for them. But some of those top arms have not thrown lately. Gabe Gackle is really the only high leverage arm that threw in a high leverage situations outside of Parker Coyle last weekend. And so what will that look like? I also think anytime you're playing Tennessee, matching that energy and matching that intensity is always going to be a huge factor. As we know, Tennessee likes to kind of have a flair for the dramatic. Now, what I'm wondering, and I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this as well, because Tennessee, when they came to bomb a few weeks ago, they were a little bit of a toned down version. Like I think there was a very clear message from Tony V that was like, hey, I like Dave Van Horn. I like these guys. Let's not be over the top. Where you saw Tennessee this past weekend really let loose. And it seems like they kind of feed off of that. They thrive in those type of atmospheres, which Baum Walker should maybe provide that kind of situation for them. I'm interested to see what Tennessee's kind of, I don't want to say antics, but what their attitude, what their energy is like. And I think there's this narrative that Arkansas plays the right way and they don't do all that stuff, which is true for the most part. But I'll tell you, Arkansas's got some guys that don't mind being under the big lights. I mean, Vahiva Aloy, he will pimp a home run if he needs to. Zach Root the other day was certainly talking his shit on the mound. Like, these Hogs have a little bit of that FU in them as well. It just doesn't come out as bombastically, if you will, as the Tennessee guys. But I think that's going to be a fascinating thing because, like, again, Tony V probably had his guys a little toned back the last time they were in Fayetteville. Will he do the same, or will he let them loose and just be like, you know what? Let's be who we are. Let's be those villains. Let's get out here and get after it. I think that's going to be a fascinating thing. And I think Dave Van Horn, anybody that has watched him knows it's not his favorite thing. You know, he doesn't really like to have this chippiness and all that, especially with him and Tony V. There's a lot of respect. I think handling that pressure, handling that intensity is going to be a big part of this. Because I think if you see that Tennessee team pumping their chest out and getting all excited and everything, you don't have to be doing that yourself, but you better have an answer for it and you better be able to stop it. And so I think it's going to be very interesting to watch that dynamic play out.
Yeah, certainly the emotions, I think, and I agree with you. You saw Tennessee let loose, and the best of what can happen when they let out the emotions and things are going well. I think obviously Tony mentioning the emotions throughout the season and things were not going well, and that's when it can be used against you. It can be a negative. But at some point, you know this, Andrew, especially this time of year, you kind of just got to be who you are and hope that's enough to get you to where you want to go. So, I don't know how much they can try to – I am curious as well what you're talking about, what the messaging is going to be, and is it a subdued down version of Tennessee, or are they more so just letting loose, being who they are, and letting the chips fall where they may? Andrew, humor me for just a moment before we get you out of here. I know this is a silly question because we all understand how big this weekend is, but for an Arkansas program that hasn't been to Omaha since 2022, and I'm already seeing chirping, or not chirping, but people talking about, obviously what the regional round did, the field, things feel pretty wide open right now. Not to look way too far ahead, but I'm already seeing talks about how open the field is and the opportunity that could present itself for an Arkansas club that, again, I think you could still argue top to bottom is the best team in the country. I mean, Andrew, just, again, humor me for a moment. Significance of this weekend and punching the ticket and getting back to Omaha for the first time in a few years.
Yeah, I think big picture for the program, certainly nice. I mean, if you look at Dave Van Horn's tenure, pretty much every 3 years, at least, they go to Omaha. And so this would kind of be a big deal if they didn't go, because, going back to, I think it would literally be 09 to 04 would have been the last time they had a gap that long of not going to Omaha. A crazy 3-4 year gap. What a wild concept. But I think it would definitely be important for the program to kind of restore that order, get back to what you're used to doing, get back to where you're used to playing. But you mentioned the field. I think if you were to, I think we were to sit here and do an exercise where we ranked all the 16 teams that are left, I think you could make a real argument that Arkansas, LSU, and Tennessee are maybe that top three. Of course, respect to North Carolina, respect to Auburn, respect to, Florida State. There's good teams out there. But really this side of the bracket for sure, Arkansas, Tennessee, and LSU probably are those most talented teams. And they just so happen to be the two teams that are in Arkansas's path. And so I think that's probably not the most ideal circumstances. But at the same time, if your goal is winning that national title, you're going to have to beat a team like this at some point. I think being able to do it at your home field where you've already beat them once this year, it's not ideal again, but I think there could be much worse situations. And so I think you mentioned if Arkansas is able to move forward and go to Omaha, you would have gotten rid of one of your biggest competitors, which I think would give you a lot of confidence. It certainly would catch the attention of the nation a little bit. And then your first game in Omaha is against LSU. And so what better way to prepare for a matchup with LSU than play against a team as talented as LSU, as talented as yourself, whereas LSU's out here in dogfights with Little Rock and fighting for their damn lives against Little Rock. I mean, geez. And now they're going to get to play West Virginia. Not necessarily the same as playing Arkansas, Tennessee, and some of these other top teams. And so I think it sets up pretty well for Arkansas. Obviously, we're not going to try and get too far ahead of ourselves, but it's definitely not lost on me that this might be Arkansas's toughest test of the entire tournament right now.
Going to be an electric weekend at Baum Walker. Again, Hawgs are just 2 wins away from going back to the promised land in Omaha, Nebraska. And I know our friend Andrew Ellis over at Inside Arkansas going to be breaking it all down, following along. Andrew, appreciate you taking the time. Electric conversation once again. And once again, I'll ask you, let the folks know, in case they didn't last week, which shame on them, where they can check out you guys' work.
Yeah, man. The Inside Arkansas YouTube channel, we got a lot of stuff going on over there. Football, basketball, baseball, a lot of baseball, of course. But yeah, it's been a journey covering this postseason, man. Shout out to Foghorns. They've been letting us do some live shows there, and so hopefully we're able to keep it going. And look forward to catching up with you in Omaha and keeping the party rolling.
Yes, sir, Andrew. I appreciate you taking the time. We'll definitely do it again soon, my friend. Best of luck to the Hawgs this weekend.
Absolutely, man. Appreciate you.